Hi, my name is Emily and I am from Enlightened Tarot, and today I thought I would make a video on how I cured my depression, anxiety, and stress. First off, I apologize for the background noise. I am currently at Courier Park in Ramona, California. It's a beautiful day, so I figured I would record outside. So I apologize for any interruptions I may have. I have been having a few ants crawl on me, so I apologize in advance. So my journey to curing my depression started around August of 2018. I am in the Navy and I suffered severe depression, stress, and anxiety with a little bit of PTSD due to my enlistment, and or actually more so of my mindset about the Navy really was the main cause of my depression. But at the time I was unaware of that. I just assumed that the Navy was the sole problem in my life. But I wanted to find a solution because I was tired of living my life the way that I was. I had come to the conclusion that I needed to accept the fact that I was in the Navy, and if I was going to finish out my contract, then I needed to cure my depression because I was on the brink of suicide, because the thought of having to continue work for an organization that I no longer stood for was absolutely miserable. And I have a family, I am married, and I have a son. And I was just overall not healthy or even present for the majority of my life. For the majority of my life at the time, I was physically there, but not mentally or emotionally, and my son and my husband deserved better. And so I took it upon myself to cure my depression. I didn't really know where to start except for sucking it up and going to a therapist. In the Navy, having depression is not the greatest thing. People tend to make fun of you and call you weak. And a lot of the times they like to say that, you are just making it up just so that you can get out of the Navy or out of work or whatever the case may be. And a lot of the times they make your life pretty miserable. So I avoided going to a therapist for an extremely long time for that sole reason, because I was afraid of what people would think of me and how I would be treated. So I went to a therapist, a civilian therapist on the ship instead of a military one that specifically dealt with depression and anxiety. And I think I saw the therapist about 3 different times before I decided, when I decided that it wasn't helping. All she wanted to do was prescribe me medications, and I don't take medications, not even Tylenol, and I don't agree with a lot of the medications that the pharmaceutical company advocates for depression and anxiety anyways. So I didn't take the medication, and I decided that she wasn't any help. And one day when I was talking to a friend, she was asking me about psilocybin mushrooms, which, if you don't know what that is, it's referred to, as magic mushrooms or shrooms, the psychedelic drug that makes you hallucinate and trip. I had never done them before at that point. I've always wanted to, I was always interested in them, but never had the opportunity. And she had asked me if I wanted to try some with her. And me being who I am, I was totally down. I mean, anything was better than nothing, right? And before you click off this video, this isn't about, using recreational drugs just because. I actually started using psilocybin mushrooms medicinally to cure my depression after the first time of trying them recreationally. So if this is not something you're interested in, feel free to click off, but if you're interested in it, please stay tuned, and I hope you are, because psilocybin mushrooms changed my life for the better, and I am forever grateful. So anyways, she gave me an 1/8 of psilocybin mushrooms, and on a Saturday I decided to try them. I didn't take the full 1/8, I took the 1/2 just because I didn't know how my body would react to them. And I had done my research prior to actually consuming them, on how to use them. I've always been interested in psychedelics, and I watch the Joe Rogan show or podcast all the time, and if you know who Joe Rogan is or what his podcast is, he talks about, psychedelics all the time. So I had prior knowledge before just diving into the mushrooms. And a 1/2 of an 1/8 isn't really a large enough dose to really throw you into a full-blown hallucinating trip anyways. So basically, I ate the mushrooms, swallowed them down with a glass of water, and waited about 45 minutes when the mushrooms actually started to kick in. It was one of the most calming, relaxing experiences I've ever had in my life, and for the first time in 4 years, I didn't have to think about anything. I could just simply exist, and that was enough for me. My mind wasn't running a million miles per second, or however the term goes, and I wasn't overthinking about anything. I wasn't thinking of the past, I wasn't thinking of the future. I was purely focused on the present moment. And I can make other videos about my my trips if you're interested in that, but that's not what this video is about. So anyways, the trip lasted the hallucinations lasted for about 7.5 hours, and even after the mushrooms wore off, I still didn't have anxiety or stress. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't overthinking about the past or the future. I was completely present and focused on here and now, and it was one of the most liberating things in my life. And the next morning I woke up and I jumped out of bed immediately. I felt completely energized and ready to go. Normally I would have snoozed my alarm clock like maybe 12 times and would have gotten up 5 minutes prior to before I had to leave the house. But this time I didn't. I got up when my alarm clock went off. I didn't think about the fact that I had to go work. I didn't sit there dreading the fact that I had to go to work, I just got up, got dressed, did my morning routine, and left the house and went to work. And that entire day, I didn't think about anything or focus about anything in particular. I just did what I had to do at work. I got everything done on time with no depression, no stress, no anxiety, no overthinking, no misery, none of that. I was completely present and happy, like actually happy. And it was the first and only time that I'd done mushrooms, and it had to have been the mushrooms that had caused it, because it was the only thing that I had done differently. I was completely blown away by what I was experiencing, that I dove into research immediately, and I started learning about how psilocybin can affect the brain. And they have actually done so many studies in the past 5 to 7 years about how psilocybin actually affects your brain, and how they're doing research studies on how it can ease depression and anxiety and stress and PTSD. Even Johns Hopkins Hospital was doing testing on cancer patients who were terminal, and they did, therapy sessions prior to them taking them, and the majority of the cancer patients, if not all, were terrified of death and the pain that it was going to cause. And they gave them the mushrooms, and the majority of them, after the first 2 or 3 times, didn't have those fears about death or, pain. They were accepting the fact that they were going to die, and they were okay with it. And even some of them even started to actually have breakthroughs with their treatments, and some of them even became not terminal. I don't know all the medical terms, so yeah. And there's other studies that were done to help with PTSD. And basically what psilocybin mushrooms does is it acts as a serotonin booster, and that is the happiness hormone that is released in your brain that makes you happy. And basically it rewires your brain to how your brain is, I guess, naturally supposed to be. From the time we are born to however old you are, your brain is constantly being rewired due to whatever you're facing. And a lot of the times the rewiring happens during traumatic incidents, and it wires your brain to a certain way, and that is why people have stress or anxiety or PTSD, is because of the way their brain has become wired due to that traumatic incident. And psilocybin mushrooms are being tested, and the theory is that and the conclusions from many of these research studies is that it rewires your brain to basically the natural configuration that it's supposed to be. It's naturally supposed to be. It's not natural to overthink. It's not natural to be depressed or stressed out or anything like that. It's just, it goes against Mother Nature. Mother Nature doesn't worry whether it's going to rain or if the trees are going to grow. It doesn't overthink, doesn't think about the past or the future. It just exists, and that's natural. So having depression and stress and anxiety, it's not a natural part of life. Even though so many people say, oh, it's natural to experience stress in your life and things like that. I mean, yes, today, and this society. You're going to experience stress due to the world we live in. But is it natural? No. And that is what psilocybin mushrooms do for you. They rewire your brain to how it's supposed to be. And so basically, after my first time of doing the tripping on the mushrooms, I did my research. I learned about microdosing. And microdosing is where you take less than a less than a milligram of psilocybin mushrooms, and you ingest it and go about your day. And a lot of people, the way microdosing is done is you would take 0.1 of a gram on day one, and you do it in the morning, or however your routine works, and you go about your day. It doesn't make you hallucinate. You don't trip on it. It just makes you feel calm and relaxed. And even myself included, many people have reported that they experience more creativity, and they're able to deal with their problems that they run into on a daily basis better than if they didn't have it. So you do 0.1 on the first day, 0.2 on the second day, 0.3, so on and so forth, until you make your way up to a gram. And once you hit a gram, most people then take a full eighth, which is about 4.5 grams, and they hallucinate and trip, and then they wait about 3 or 4 days to kind of give their body a break, and then they start the microdosing all over again, starting at 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and working their way up. I did that basically. I microdosed and tripped about 3 times, and the third trip that I had changed my life forever and basically induced my spiritual awakening, which is a whole nother story on its own, which I will talk about shortly in a different video. But basically, once I had my spiritual awakening that was caused by psilocybin mushrooms, I could start to see things in a completely different light. And it really changed the way I thought about life in general, and it changed everything for me. And even when I was before my spiritual awakening, just microdosing in general made life, sorry, 1 second, so there's an ant in my shoe. But microdosing and tripping on psilocybin mushrooms made me happy, made me calm. It made life bearable enough to give me the energy to find a solution on how to change my life. It brought me out of the nightmare that I was living. And psilocybin mushrooms are completely natural. They're not chemically made. They are grown in the ground by Mother Nature. It's plant medicine, and it doesn't have any horrible side effects. I've only experienced positive side effects from mushrooms. Yes, people have experienced while tripping on mushrooms that they get an upset stomach, but it's only an upset stomach. I mean, I personally have never experienced an upset stomach, and it honestly just depends on what you eat. You're not really supposed to take them on a full stomach, but a lot of people tend to eat food or mix food in psilocybin mushrooms to get rid of the taste of them. Granted, they don't taste the greatest, But I mean, alcohol doesn't taste very good either, but so many of us chug alcohol like it's water. So, but there's really no negative side effects to it. And psilocybin mushrooms is the one drug, if that's really what you want to call it, that you can't die from it. You can't overdose. You may think that you're going to die when you're currently hallucinating on it, but you'll never actually die. It doesn't actually affect your body in a negative way whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories, seen stories of people who've taken over like 12, 13 grams of mushrooms and they're still alive and perfectly healthy. And if you are interested in psilocybin mushrooms, you know, Terence McKenna was obsessed with learning about them. Paul Stamets, the mushroom guy, is a huge advocate for them. And there's so much that you can learn about them. And they're not just good for curing depression, but they're good for so many things. So before you completely write off the idea of psilocybin mushrooms because they're considered a drug in today's society, please do your research and educate yourself on what they can do for you if this is something you're interested in. Now, there are other ways to go about curing your depression, but a lot of the times when you have depression, you don't have the energy or the care in the world to even try to get yourself out of the hole that you dug. It is easier to sit there and wallow in your pain than it is to get up and start making change. And psilocybin mushrooms gives you that natural boost. And it's not even like an energy drink to where, you know, you have to constantly take it, or like a medication where you have to constantly take it. You don't have to do what I did, you know, microdosing every day and tripping. Granted, I only did it for about a month or so before I actually, you know, before something major happened. But I took psilocybin mushrooms once and I didn't have depression or stress and anxiety, and it was amazing. And they're good for you. They're not bad for you. So many of us consume things that are bad for us on a daily basis, like alcohol, caffeine, tobacco, sugar. A lot of the processed foods are 10 times worse than any plant medicine you'll ever ingest. 10 times worse. But we're not afraid to do that because they're legal, because our government and society promotes it. So don't be afraid to try them if it's something you're interested in. And as a disclaimer, one thing that you should know, some people don't always do their research, is you don't want to use plant medicine if you are currently on any type of medication for depression, anxiety, and stress. Sometimes the two chemicals don't always mix and it can be dangerous. So of course, please do your research thoroughly and do it safely. So that is my story about how I started to cure my depression, and I will soon make a video on my spiritual awakening on how I completely got rid of depression, stress, and anxiety from my life, and how I changed my life for the better. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned, and if you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe, and please share the video. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. If you have any comments or any topics that you would like for me to discuss on this channel, please let me know. Comment down below, or feel free to message me at Enlightened Tarot, Facebook or Instagram. or email me. Everything is in the description box below. So thank you and have a beautiful, blessed day.